Hi, I'm Dr. Gwyn Erwin, and welcome back to my channel, Healing for Your Life. This is a continuation of a series I've been doing on organizing for the creative process. And today I'm going to do what I thought was the final video in this series, Domain 5, which is on project management. There are 3 sections to this, and so as we go, I'm going to check the time, and this may end up being 3 little sub-videos rather than one long one. Project management is one of the most important skills anybody can have in life because it applies across the board to every facet of life. But for a creative person, it can be particularly challenging because we are such right-brained people that we don't necessarily think in such a structured way, and sometimes we feel like those structures impede our own creative process. But the opposite is actually true, at least the way that I've developed some of the both ideas and management tools that I've delineated will support your creativity, and especially will support you accomplishing getting a project done in a timely way and in a way that you're ready to launch it with excitement and not just fatigue. So the 3 sections of project management are, first of all, planning how to manage a project. The second are the stages of actually being involved in the development of a project. And the third are how to manage multiple projects. Now, there's lots of software available online that's project management software. Most of it, the majority of it, is for teams in the corporate world. And I've researched this for years, and I have a tiny team. I don't have a big team, and I don't work in the corporate world, although I work with people in the corporate world and coach them all the time. So I know what's up with that and how difficult it can be to manage projects. But most of that software, if you are an individual or an individual creator or an entrepreneur, a lot of that software is going to be missing vital ingredients that you need and overloading you with things you don't need. But there are elements in almost all of them that are worthwhile. I use Asana, and that's my main digital program that I use. But I do a lot on paperwork as well because it really helps me with mind mapping and creativity and just kind of sloppily find my way as I work with something. So managing multiple projects, I think, is the most challenging aspect, and we'll give lots of examples of that. But we're going to start right now with how you plan out a project. Now, a project is anything that takes multiple steps. If it's a single step that can be accomplished in less than 30 seconds or 10 minutes or an hour, it's a task. So anything that has more than one step, or action steps, as David Allen calls them, is a project. And a project can take anywhere from a day, a few hours even, a day to a week to a month to 3 months to 6 months to a year to 2 years to 5 years and on from there. So planning out a project is quite an endeavor. Today, I'm going to use as an example a 1-year project, just so that we have something to work with as an illustration, and it can be adapted to shrink down the time to 3 months or 1 month, and it can be expanded to have a project of 2 to 5 years. So you have 2 big aspects to a project. One is the dynamic aspect, which certainly happens with multiple projects. You've got many balls kind of juggling at the same time over a timeline. But you also have dynamic aspects even in a single project, because you're trying to figure out some basic aspects of that project, which we're about to get to. But then there is also the linear part of the process, which is how to break those projects down into steps that you can take one at a time that add up over time, which creates your project. So we're going to keep both of those ideas in mind as we go. So I've created a process that I've used with people for years that works really, really well. And as I said, I'm going to give you a kind of standard template just as an illustration, but please adapt it to your project and adapt it time-wise, because the steps will remain the same. There will either be fewer of them or more of them, but the idea will stay intact and serve you well. So I call this process plan backwards and act forwards. So you start with the end in mind, and that is where you're going to plan backwards from. So let's say that you want to, I'm going to use a book as an example, but you could do it if you wanted to create a beautiful cabinet in woodworking. You could use it if you want to create a vegetable garden. You could use it to create a painting. You can use it, I mean, it's endlessly applicable. But just for sake of ease, we're going to use a specific idea. So let's say that you want to finish a book in 1 year, and your end point for this project of creating this book is that your final step, what we're going to begin with, the end in mind, is that that book is ready to send off to an agent or a publisher. Now, the marketing project of a book is a whole separate project in and of itself. So we're just going to talk about creating your product, whatever that creation is. We want to fix in our mind, okay, I have an end date, and a year from today, I want to have that product ready to launch. Whether it's to sell a beautiful frontispiece or an armoire or a rocking chair or something that you're going to sell, or you want to create something in your home or redecorate your home or reconstruct part of it, or you want to write a book or have a showing at a gallery. The end date is, that is when I am ready to launch. So you have an actual due date. You mark the day on top of a large piece of paper, or a series of papers, or a document screen under the title of the project. And then you move backwards from that date. You give yourself 1 month backwards from that end date for the polishing, the final fine-tuning of that project. So whether it's your final proofreading, not editing, but proofreading, or it's the final polishing and smoothing of a piece of woodwork and the staining of it, or it's where you're going to be starting to plant all your seeds, or you're finishing up and just going to do the final varnish on something, or finishing up the last, framing your pictures that you've painted. That month is for polishing and very fine tuning. Now you need to move backwards from that month and give yourself about 6 weeks. Now you're still going to be working on your project, but these 6 weeks are for the purpose of getting feedback from a person or a group that you need to get feedback from about your project. So if you're doing a dissertation, you want to get your final draft to your committee 6 weeks before you're ready to start polishing, so that when you get it back in 6 weeks, you're just going to do those final polishing suggestions. If you're working with a gallery owner, you want to give them 6 weeks to plan how your show is going to be set up. If you need to talk to your gardener in terms of designing a vegetable garden or a flower garden, you need to give them at least 6 weeks for feedback. Now, it might not take them 6 weeks, certainly of solid work, but they have their own schedules, they have their own projects, and so you want to give them ample time to get to yours in order to give you the feedback that you need. Then you move backwards from there, having taken into account their schedule and their needs. If you don't need feedback, you're going to skip that step and use those 6 weeks to do a final solid draft or go through of your project. And you're going to be working on your project anyway, but if you don't need the feedback, you can dig in even deeper and not have to worry about, in that month afterwards, I can just polish my own work. I won't have to take into account somebody else's feedback. Then you're going to take another step back, and you're going to spend 1 to about 4 months actually crafting your project. Now, if you're writing, it's going to be all writing and rewriting. And one of the courses that I'm going to offer under the writing playlist is on how to draft through a writing project. But during these 4 or 5 months, you're going to be working hard on your project, developing it, going through many iterations of it, deepening it, bringing in research, bringing in other ideas, or you'll be painting up a storm and moving from one painting to another. So this is a period of time, a major chunk of time, when you are busy crafting your project. And it's an intense period of time, but that's when you're doing the bulk of the work of it. Prior to that step, which could take you maybe a month or 2, you're going to be doing a lot of research. Research, gathering, consulting, getting ideas, and setting yourself up to do that big chunk of work. And then the step before that is you're going to be flow creating. And during this time, you're going to be doing a lot on paper or on the computer. You're not necessarily writing, you're not necessarily painting. You might be doing sketches. You might be flow writing onto the page. You might be designing your table or your cabinet. You're going to make lots of mistakes, and you let yourself make those mistakes because this is the place to make them. Lots of iterations, lots of learning. And you could do that for a month or 2, depending, again, you've got to take into consideration whether you need much feedback or help along the way, or you could just be designing and creating and then diving into the work itself. Then the stage before that, which usually takes maybe a month, is a time of just gestating, mulling, playing with some beginning ideas. You're not even necessarily sketching yet. You're looking at other gardens, you're looking at books, you're looking at the kind of things that you want to be doing. It's a time of a lot of thinking and just considering. And then before that, you've got a period of time that could be from a day to a week to a month. Do I want to create this project? And is it being assigned to me, or is it one that I am electing to do? And this is a time where you think about what it's going to take to do this project. What is it going to take to reconfigure your whole yard into a garden? What is it going to take to put on a show? What is it going to take to do a major piece of work? Can that fit into your family life? How do you carve out the time to do that? These are where you consider a lot of practical things, but also your desires for that project. Once you've completed all of these steps in planning backwards, then you begin at the beginning and act forwards. So you start with that decision. Do I want to create this project? Do I want to invest this kind of time and energy into this project? Can it fit into my life? How will it fit into my life? And then you work forward through all of those steps. And at the end of a year, you will be ready to launch. That's it for now. We're going to go to, it was video A, I guess, of Domain 5. And now we're going to go to the next video, which is on stages of project development and management. Thanks. See you soon. Bye.